Good afternoon. It is Tuesday the 28th of August 2018. I've gotten a couple of emails over the course of the last couple of days asking about factoring using the AC method. And so I wanted to do a couple examples here at the board with you right away this afternoon just so that you could maybe see how those are done. I would also encourage you too, if you don't find what I'm about to share with you helpful, which is fine, I would encourage you to go out into YouTube or out into the internet and look for video examples similar to the one that I'm about to do here. So we're going to talk about AC method, and when I'm done here, if you still have questions about anything, please do not hesitate to get in touch with me through email or through other channels, and we can get you organized. Okay, I'm going to pause this for a second. So the example that we're going to start with is this trinomial right here, 6y squared minus y minus 2. I hope you can see that okay. And the directions are factor this using the AC method. And so the first step in the AC method is to identify what is A and what is C. You may recall when you're looking at a trinomial like this that the coefficient on the y squared term or the x squared term is going to be what you call A. The coefficient on the center term or the y term in this case would be what you call B. And then the constant out here, the number that doesn't have any variables attached to it, is what we call C. And so in our problem here, A times C, or AC, is going to be 6 times negative 2, which you may recognize as negative 12. So AC is equal to negative 12, all right? The next thing that I want to ask myself is, I'm looking for factors of negative 12, so numbers that when I multiply them together I get negative 12, that also add up to B. So factors of A times C that add up to B. So what are some factors of negative 12? Well, negative 12 times 1 is equal to negative 12. So negative 12 and 1 are factors of negative 12, but when I add these together, negative 12 plus 1, I get negative 11. So that's not the numbers I'm looking for. Let's try another pair of factors of negative 12. How about negative 6 times 2? That's negative 12. But when I add these numbers up, negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4, which is not equal to B. I should mention, too, in our case, B in this problem, 6y squared minus y minus 2, B in our problem, gang, is negative 1. So we're looking for factors of negative 12 that when I add them up I get negative 1. Let's try one more pair of factors. What if I did negative 3 times 4? Well, negative 3 times 4 is negative 12, but when I add these up, negative 3 plus 4, I get 1. So let's switch this around. What if I try negative 4 times 3? That's negative 12. When I add negative 4 to negative 3, I get negative 1, which is my B. So I think I've landed on the pair of factors that I want to use to build the next part of the problem. Okay? I'm going to pause it here, and we'll start back up in a second. Okay, I've rewritten the problem here. 6y squared minus y minus 2. Again, the name of the game here is to factor this using the AC method. I've written up above here what A times C is. Remember, A is 6, C is negative 2. When I multiply those two things together, I get negative 12. And then I'm looking for factors of negative 12 that when I add them up, I get my B term back again. Or I get the coefficient. I get B. B is the coefficient on the middle term. We decided that negative 4 times 3 would satisfy that. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. Negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1. And so negative 4 plus 3 is equal to negative 1, which in this case is equal to B. So I've found the set of factors for A times C that add up to B. Once I've figured out what these factors are that multiply to C, AC, and add up to B, then what I want to do is I want to rewrite this, but I want to use these terms here instead of my negative 1. So I'm going to rewrite this. 6y squared minus 4y plus 3y minus 2. And you'll notice minus 4 plus 3 is equal to negative 1, which is what I have written here. So this is effectively the same thing, just written a little bit different. All right? So that's the next step in your AC method. Figure out what A times C is, find factors of A times C that add up to B, and then what you do is you rewrite your original expression, but what you've done is you split the middle term. So what you're doing here is called splitting. All right? Now what you want to do, you've got 4 terms here. You recall that when you've got 4 terms in a polynomial and you're trying to factor that, one thing that you could think about is what you call factor by grouping. So factor by grouping. What I do is I group around the first 2 terms, keep the sign in the middle, and then group around the second 2 terms. So I'm going to group around this first chunk, 6y squared minus 4y, keep the plus sign in the middle, and then group this second term. So 3y minus 2. Group these second 2 terms. Now, as part of the factor by grouping, what can you factor out of this first binomial? Maybe you notice that there's a 2y inside each one of these terms. So if I pull out a 2y, I'm going to be left with 3y minus 2. And then if I go here, I can't factor anything out of the 3y and the 2, so I would just leave that. I could pull out a 1. If I go 1 here, 3y minus 2. Now I have a common binomial. Common binomial in this case is going to be 3y minus 2. I'm going to pull that common binomial out. So if I factor out 3y minus 2, what am I left with? I'm left with the coefficients out here, 2y and 1. And that's it. You're factored. How would you test to see if you're right or not? You could FOIL this back out. If you FOIL this, 2y times 3y is 6y squared. 2y times a negative 2 is minus 4y. 1 times a 3y is a positive 3y. 1 times a negative 2 is a negative 2. And if I simplify this, 6y squared minus y minus 2 gets me back to where we started. So there's an example. There's one example of AC method. I'll give another example here in just a few minutes. But I'd like you to, now that you've seen an example of this worked out, give this a shot on your own and see how you do. I should also mention that I think there is an example in your textbook, kind of a video example in your ebook that walks you through how to do AC method as well. So check that and see too. I'll post another example here shortly. All right. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions about anything, please don't hesitate to ask. Thanks.